Nous sommes au Festival America à Vincennes et nous sommes en compagnie de O Brien, écrivain américain dont nous allons faire l'interview tout de suite. So Dan, which of the three activities came first? You are a rancher, a falconer, a writer, which is quite rare.
Thinking back now, I was a falconer when I was a little boy. So, I was very interested in that. And the writing actually didn't come till later. Probably I was in my, 22 or 3 before I have a confession to make. I never read a book all the way through till I was 21.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Never did. So, so that had to come a little later. But I've always worked on farms and ranches and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And as a rancher, you created the Wild ID Buffalo Company.
That's correct.
And you contribute to preserve the ecosystem and the ecology in the Great Plains. How did you have this idea and why?
I have always been interested in being outdoors. I've been outdoors my whole life. And I went to work just by serendipity, by luck, working for a nonprofit organization that released falcons back to the wild. When the falcons were endangered, we raised them in captivity and then we released them. And I worked for them for 7 years. And before that, I worked for the Game and Fish Department, the state Game and Fish Department. So I've always been in this conservation movement. And when the peregrine falcon was delisted, was no longer on the endangered species list, I looked around and tried to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I'd been doing it pretty steady for 15 years. And when you're on the Great Plains, you don't have to look very far with conservation in mind till you come to buffalo. Because it's, without the buffalo, the Great Plains are not the same place. And so I got very interested in that, and it's sort of taking my life over. But it's the thing, my last 3 books have been about buffalo.
When did you feel inspired about the nature you are talking about, the Great Plains? When and how did you realize that it was kind of soil for writing?
My mother was a singer, and so the arts were something that we did in our house. But I was never artistic at all. I was a football player, basically. And so, but arts were all right. And so I just I had this urge to be understood, to try to figure out a way to make people feel the way I did about nature. And so writing was accessible to me, because you just have to write it, and if it's not right, you just write it again, you write it again, you write it again. You can, it's not like it's a one-time performance, you can fix it. So I started doing that, and then I found out that anybody can actually do that. And then people started to sort of understand what I was trying to get across, even though maybe I didn't understand it, if you follow that. It was exciting to me to be able to do that, and it's lasted for 40 years.
Do you think about nature writing, which is very popular, especially in the USA? Do you think there is something in the American DNA that produces this link to the nature and to this kind of writing?
I would like to turn that around just a little bit. I think that there's something in the DNA of other countries that doesn't produce it. Because I think that as human beings, we are part of all of that nature, and not just a park. We're part of it. The whole predation, survival, all that kind of stuff. And I think that because America is such a new nation, and because it was really born in kind of a savage, there's still a lot of residue left over from that time. And I think that fortunately there are people that are realizing that that is our true place on earth, you know. And so I think that it is different. I think the United States has a tradition of nature writing and a tradition of people understanding their true place in the world, you know. And we don't do a great job of it in the United States, but we're trying. You know.
And there are many people like you aware of this nature, of how important it is to preserve it instead of destroying this.
I think that there are a lot of people in the United States that have a desire to and a belief that we are just another animal, and I think that it is often hijacked for commercial purposes and for all sorts of purposes, but there is a core of people that really kind of understand what's at stake, and of course what's at stake is everything. You know, it's really all we got is that connection.
Yes, it's the most precious thing and the most simple and the easiest to take care of.
It is, but it's also difficult because you know, nature is the joke in the United States is nature is a mother. You know, I mean, it's hard, it's tough, and it's hard to be to balance your humanity with what we really are biologically, and it's something we'll struggle with forever. I think it's the curse of being human.
It's not a terrible curse, we can, I think.
I don't know. I do believe that, you know, we are temporary here, probably more so than a lot of species, and I think as soon as we come to grips with that, then we begin to look at things a little differently.
And is it this feeling of being temporal, being limited in time, that makes you feel like writing? I read you were writing every day from very early in the morning, and then...
Yeah, but it varies. I write every day that I'm writing, I write, you know, but I like to go and just do physical things. I'm not so much anymore. I am old, and so I can't do the physical work that I used to do. But I do feel a little driven to have that part of it understood. And it's a difficult point to get across, because with the idea of consumption, materialism that we fight every day is powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff, and it's difficult to counteract that.
Even if you live quite alone and isolated.
It's all one place. There's only one place, and that's Earth. You know, so it doesn't really matter if one person is living a solitary life, because it's everybody.
Everybody's still around.
Yeah, everybody's still around, and the residue is still around.
And you were a great friend, as I read, of another nature lover who was Jim Harrison.
Oh yeah, sure.
What would be your words to describe him? How would you?
It's interesting. When he died, I read all the obituaries, and it was pretty universally covered in the media in the United States, at least, and I imagine here too. But and of course, Jim was an outrageous character, but a lot of it was, there was theater to Jim's life, and but when you stripped all that away, he was such a kind and humorous guy. He was very kind to me. He read one of my books and just called me up. You know, he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to do that at all. And we got to be, not, we didn't like hang out together, but we saw each other quite a bit. And he taught me a lot. He's like a kind of like a big brother or an uncle or something like that to me, you know. So yeah, real good guy. And of course, his books speak for themselves. I mean, they're pretty powerful books.
Do you have a book to recommend? What are you reading at the moment?
I am reading. Actually, I'm reading several books. I said I didn't start reading until I was 21, but once I started reading books, I got crazy for it. And I'm reading a book by Peter Heller, who's here, and I've never met him, but I will meet him, but called The Painter, which I think is a real good book. I'm just about finished with that. And I've just read so many books lately. And, you know, everything from psychological thrillers to environmental stuff, mysteries and all that kind of stuff. There's just, it's so rich out there right now that it's hard to say what's best or what to recommend.